Yeah, it seems the case. So again, my name is Ayman. In case you didn't hear me initially, I'm a solution engineer here with Fivetran. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Today we will talk about how Falcon.io, our customers, are using Salesforce as the hub of their data stacks and how Fivetran is helping them in the back. So initially, I will give Greg from Falcon.io the hand to present himself and how they are using Fivetran in this journey. And in the second part, I will give a quick overview of Fivetran and how you can have the same experience as Falcon.io. Greg, to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ayman. Yeah, so to introduce myself real quick, my name's Greg. I'm a data analyst at Falcon as part of the data ops team here. I specialize in reporting on commercial data, especially with Salesforce and other marketing tools. So I'll be talking about that in our analytics with Salesforce today.
Sure.
Yeah, so the agenda, I'm going to give an intro to Falcon. Then I'm going to briefly discuss Salesforce at Falcon, how we use it. Then I'm going to go over a use case in which we are transforming the Fivetran schemas into business-ready data models that we use in reporting and visualization. And lastly, I'm going to go over a couple predictive analytical models that we've gotten value out of at Falcon. I'll just briefly introduce them in case somebody here could get use out of these once they connect Fivetran to their data warehouse. Yeah, so first of all, welcome to Falcon. We are the unified social media platform. So why are we here? Digital marketers use Falcon for content planning and collaboration, digital advertising, customer service and community management, analytics and insight, social listening, and competitor benchmarking. The Falcon platform combines all of these things together, all of the products you see on the right, so that you can connect all of your social media channels in the same place. We are headquartered in Copenhagen. We mainly sell to medium and enterprise-sized companies, though recently we've rolled out an essentials package for smaller companies as well. You can go ahead. Yeah, Salesforce at Falcon, because we mainly have sold historically to medium and large-sized companies, the sales team at Falcon has been the backbone to our growth. It's been really important. So Salesforce is very important to us. It's our primary CRM tool. Naturally, our KPIs at Falcon revolve around Salesforce. So we do have KPIs and data defined in different places on the commercial side, for example, with marketing. But the ultimate goal, even within marketing, is to convert marketing leads into the sales cycle eventually, which is then defined in Salesforce. So we have reporting needs that go beyond the built-in analytical tools in Salesforce. And because of that, we need Salesforce data. This is where Fivetran comes in. We don't have to deal with the ETL pipeline going from Salesforce and other tools to our data warehouse. We can just worry about the transformation and the reporting. And to kind of, let's say you have your Fivetran connector for Salesforce set up. You've got your up-to-date data in your data warehouse, and you want to get some value out of that. I'd like to demonstrate that based on a pretty straightforward use case we have at Falcon, in which we need to report on unique contacts and leads. So specifically, our marketing leads are defined in a tool called Marketo, and of course our sales contacts and leads are defined in Salesforce. We have a need to understand the complete story and the complete user journey of these people, and the only way to do that is to join the data coming from both of these tools together and therefore we use Fivetran to give us this data in our warehouse, and we transform it. So first of all, if you're going to use Fivetran, you're probably going to need to set up an Elt pipeline. This is the pretty basic one we use at Falcon. In this use case, Fivetran sources us with Salesforce and Marketo schemas through their connectors. Our destination is Amazon Redshift. We use DBT to then query the raw data coming from Fivetran and create data models that are ready for reporting, and we write those back into Redshift, and then we query these models in a Looker, which is our visualization tool. You could easily replace Looker with really whatever you want, depending on your needs. So zooming in on the DBT step, the transformation step, here we have a DBT diagram, a simplified diagram showing the data flow going from Fivetran to this people model that we use in reporting. On the left in green are these our raw source tables coming from Fivetran connectors. So we got our Salesforce schema on the bottom left and Marketo on the top left. The tables we're using for this problem are Salesforce contact and lead, of course, to define contacts and leads coming from Salesforce, account, which we join onto contact to get relevant company information, and Salesforce task, which is what we use to define sales activities such as emails and meetings, etc. These are tasks defined in Salesforce itself. Maybe you have experience with these. On the top left, we got a couple Marketo tables. Marketo lead is our primary table defining marketing leads. An activity delete lead is a table we need to join in to exclude deleted leads. This is a table that you might see in other places as well, and in some of Fivetran schemas. All of these source tables are then written into these STG _ Salesforce or Marketo models. These are staging tables, and it's typical best practice when using something like DBT to create staging tables so that you're only referencing source data in one place, and you can do some minor transformations or filter something that you want to propagate through all other models in your transformation infrastructure. Then lastly, we join all of these staging tables together into this people model. And this is the endpoint you would use in reporting. So this should be ready to go. So here is just a snippet of some of the join logic for those of you that are that write SQL. Just to show you that this is pretty straightforward. Here's the join logic between Salesforce contact lead and Marketo lead. We just have to do left joins on the Salesforce tables to Marketo lead based on a primary foreign key relationship that's just given to us by Fivetran's connectors. So this is pretty straightforward. There's also this Salesforce lead is converted as false flag just to exclude leads that should be contacts. But our actual people model is far more complex, of course, but the underlying join logic remains the same, and it's not difficult to use. And lastly, sorry, could you go back one slide?
Yeah, sure.
So the people model, like I said, it can be used as an endpoint for reporting and visualization. However, we primarily use this model at Falcon as a critical piece in more advanced models that are used for more advanced analytics. For example, people is a fundamental piece to this opportunity touchpoints model you see on the bottom right, which allows us to tie all activity from as far back in the past that we're tracking in marketing, say like a page view or a form fill or a download, all the way up to current sales activities. And we can tie all of these to an opportunity and understand what's driving these opportunities to convert. So this people use case would be a first step in achieving something like that. Models, because these models themselves are fairly complex, and we might need to add new data fields or new tables or new data representing new entities in Salesforce to these things. And we don't have to redesign the ETL pipeline every time we do that. We can just look at the data we're just getting every day from Fivetran and just prototype these things very quickly. So I'm just going to go through a couple example of these that we've gotten some value out of at Falcon. First, Markov Chain. This is a model developed by a Russian mathematician named Markov. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but basically what this thing does is it predicts future events based on past events. So at Falcon, we use this to predict the behavior of people, contacts or leads, based on what they've done previously in their user journey. This, as you might expect, is going to be really dependent on these transformed data models. At Falcon, we need to create this people model to even begin to think about this people data set in DBT, as well as a complete picture of these activities like sales activities, marketing activities, and channels. We need to understand these in the context of a person. So this is something you might be able to approach once you have a sophisticated transformation infrastructure set up. We use this primarily to calculate data-driven attribution. So attribution, for those of you that are not familiar, this is just a way to assign credit to activities on somebody's journey leading to a conversion. So for example, if you win an opportunity and you want to understand what drove that opportunity to convert and sign a contract, you can use many attribution rules like first touch or last touch or other multi-touch rules, or you could use a machine learning model like this one. So this is primarily how we use this model. I recommend looking up Markov chain attribution or just machine learning attribution in general if you think this could be useful to you. Second, ANN classification. So an ANN is an artificial neural network, and a classification model is a model that simply classifies a data record based on historical data. So at Falcon, we've prototyped some ANNs, and it's looking like we're going to get some value out of a couple types of these things. And we use it to predict the likelihood of binary outcomes. So specifically, we use it to predict if an account or a lead will convert. So the way you use this is you give all of your relevant leads throughout history to this ANN, and it learns based on all these leads how it can pick up on whether or not they're going to convert. So it finds relationships between all the data fields representing these leads or accounts and gives you a number 0 to 1, which represents likelihood to convert. This is a deep learning algorithm, so it requires a lot of data. So it's very important for us to have something like Fivetran, because we don't have to worry about getting the data. We can just write a Python script, pre-process a bunch of raw data we're getting from Fivetran and prototype stuff like this right away. I do not think we'd be able to to do this in a reasonable amount of time without an automated ETL pipeline. Yeah, and again, I recommend looking up both of these models if you think these types of problems would be useful to you in the context of where you work. And that concludes my presentation, so I'll hand it back to Eamon.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Greg. It's very interesting indeed, and we can see already some questions coming about your models. Just a reminder that we will cover all questions at the end. So in this part, I will try to give you a quick overview of Fivetran, and you've seen with Greg how the data that is brought into their data warehouse Redshift is used to their benefit, the Salesforce data. And here I will show you how it's actually so easy to implement this kind of approach. Initially, I will just talk in general about the modern data stack and where we are, where Fivetran is placed in this equation. I will talk about the Salesforce integrations, quick presentation of the history mode and how it can be very interesting for analytics. And then I will give you what is the most important part, I think, a demo of the product of Fivetran. And as I mentioned, we finish with the Q&A. Myself and Greg will be available for all your questions. Feel free to start putting them now or at the end. So I think this presentation summarizes really why products like Fivetran comes in to solve this integration challenge. I think it's fair to mention it as the challenging loop. The loop of starting from the business user that needs reporting, business-oriented reporting, goes back to the analyst, who themselves they need to go back to IT, or maybe directly to the data engineer, or the team that is concerning both, who then they need to go back to the data source, extract the data that the business user defined at the start, put in the transformation that is needed, or bring it back to along the chain. And of course, when you go through so many steps, we're talking about many risks, many point of failures that is possible, many manual work. With manual work, the risk goes higher. But more than that, no data analytics is about the most up-to-date data, about live data if possible. With such chain, with such many people involved, the user, the end user, the business, or the analyst may not be working with today's data, but rather with last week's data, or maybe even more. Fivetran comes in to solve this problem and make sure that the end users first need all this manual work in the background, but also getting the latest data. Fivetran is presenting a fully managed automated pipeline platform. With Fivetran, all you have to do is to set up your connectors. It brings in data from different applications such as Fivetran, databases, events, IoT devices, from your storage files, and we extend this support with cloud functions and other approaches to support any third-party sources that we don't have yet a connector, or that is specific and very niche in terms of application. More than that, we make sure that we update this data with patches. So you have always this incremented data landing in your data warehouse, that you are dealing with the latest data. You don't have to run at night queries or patches. The data can be updated as fast as 5 minutes or even less. We make sure that you have a pipeline that is resilient, that is have a recovery from any failure possible, that is automated to update schemas. We pick up any change in the schemas, such as columns in a database or objects in Salesforce, and we run these micro patches so we don't have any load on your data warehouse. And Fivetran is fully managing this process of bringing the data, but also in bringing in already schemas, like mentioned Greg, in the data warehouse. Today, the focus is about Salesforce and how we do that. Greg mentioned how they're using the Salesforce schema. That's possible because with Fivetran, the data, when it lands in the data warehouse, it is already presented in a schema that is a reflection of the business value of the Salesforce. And we do that with all our sources. As you can see here, for instance, for Salesforce, we have the schema, what we call entity relationship diagram. We have 3 tables: support, sales, and events, with the logical links and joints between the different objects of these tables. And the data is landed in this schema in the data warehouse. So our users, like Greg, can use these tables to run their transformation with DBT, for instance, with easy queries, DBT-based or SQL-based transformation. And we don't stop at this initial schema that we have. In the likes of Salesforce, you can create new objects. Fivetran pick up those changes. At the next synchronization, update the schemas at the destination and add those added objects. And we maintain these diagrams and the destination. So we have always the most updated copy of your data. However, we spoke about the most updated copy of your data. Sometimes you are interested in history mode, in even what changes happen to this data. We bring in the history mode with Salesforce. Traditionally, every time you do new synchronization, you get the latest update of that record. With the history mode, you get a recording of all the changes. And this is overcome a limitation that you may have with Salesforce, because with Salesforce, all you can get is the latest recording. But with Fivetran history mode, you can get the historic changes of this recording, which allows you to do analysis on how data is changing, for instance, over time or at a particular point of time. We will show you how it is easy to activate this mode and to switch back and forth between live mode and history mode. And you don't need to activate it for all your tables or all your schema. You can focus only on the table where tracking history or temporary change is important and activate it per table. We see here some example of situation where our customers are enabling the history mode. For instance, to track changes for opportunities. It can be important to the analyst to gain more knowledge in the changes and the period of time that an opportunity took from initial conversion as a lead to closure, to see the changes that happen and the time that took to change. Another application is to follow up existing account consumption over time, to track over time how this consumption is going up and down, to know where and why these consumption, for instance, are changing. That can help to reduce churn, for instance. With booking, usually with the traditional systems, all you can see is the latest situation. With the history mode, you can see if some, for instance, happened some cancellation in the past, and then a new booking happened. We can see the trends. And I think this is quite important at nowadays with quite uncertainty and lots of cancellation and new booking that happen at a non-normal, let's say, or expected mode. With such history mode, you can have a vision of the changes over this time, and you can analyze and predict how these changes can happen. Okay, I think it's time to go and try something more interesting, which is the demo. Okay. So in this page, we are at the main interface, the main dashboard of Fivetran. At this account, as you can see on the left, when I hit my destination, I set up the same architecture as Greg has in Falcon.io with the Redshift warehouse as a destination. And from there, I added new connectors. I added this connector Salesforce. And you can see in this, when we go to the schema, it has been running for a few days now. If you go to the lead, we can see that I activated the history mode for this lead. For your information, I'm logged in at the moment in my development Salesforce environment, and you can see the list of leads I have here. And also I can show you in my destination in Redshift, the different tables that I did already synchronize. We can see, for example, the lead here, and we can you can see it's loading the preview of the data. Now I will show you how fast is it to do this setup. So I go back to Fivetran, go back on my connector list, and all I have to do, just click add a new connector. From here, select Salesforce. As I mentioned, I'm already logged in my development Salesforce entity account. So all I have to do here is to name it. For instance, Falcon. Really hope you don't mind. I name it as such. And all I have to do is authorize. Because I'm already logged in the browser, I'm using OAuth 2 authorization, a login. Fivetran will pick up that authentication and allows me to continue with the setup. As you can see, it has been success. Save and test. In this phase, once I authentified myself, Fivetran connector is running a batch of API calls to first verify that authentication, what kind of objects I have access to, and read the schema. The purpose of this test to bring in the schema that I will need to view. As you can see, it didn't take more than 10 seconds or so. So now we are ready to go have a look at the connector and review the schema that it has been just read during this API call. Salesforce, like many other data sources, support native objects, but also custom objects. And with Fivetran, you are able to synchronize all these data and any added data in the future. Let's say we are happy enough with the selection that we have per default. Save and continue. And pretty much we are done. So all we have to do now is just start the initialization. And you can see it is starting. The initial step will be to synchronize any historic data, I mean any data that has been available in Salesforce about the past data. If it's a database, it's a select query to bring in all the data. This part is free with Fivetran. And then, depend on my setup, for instance, in my case, with my setup is for each 6 hours, Fivetran will update my Salesforce tables in the destination and Redshift with the latest information. If you go back to the schema here, I can show you how you activate the history mode. So I showed you earlier in the other connector how the lead has been activated. Excuse me. So if you look at here, for instance, for the opportunity table, we can just toggle the history mode and activate it. But from now on, at the destination level, at history level, we will record any changes for the data that is in this table. I can show you quickly here, actually in Redshift, how that's reflected. And you can see in the far right side how you have the columns. First, the true column shows that the history mode has been activated for the lead table, and also the Fivetran synchronization start and end time. Let's go back to Fivetran. So this connector is set up, is running, and we are happy enough to it. You can do the same thing for any other connector, and as you can see, we support many types of connectors. On the left side, you have access to the different sections of the interface where you can, for instance, manage your users, have a look at your logs and connect them to a service that you have, or run your transformation either with DBT, like Greg mentioned, or with our basic SQL transformation. And last thing, from here, you can access our website where you will have access to all information that you will need to set up our connectors, to understand how the data is behaved, and moreover, like we mentioned, for instance, to look at the different ERDs or schemas that you will have in your destination. So if you look, for example, at Salesforce, the one we mentioned earlier, we can see that we have access to the schema in here. With this, I finish my demo and I go back to our presentation. And yeah, as a summary, with Fivetran, you have access to a full schema replications, fully automated. Everything is managed by Fivetran. All migration of your schema is fully automated and managed by Fivetran. We look at incremental data loading to be light on your infrastructure. And we have various type of transformations to apply, very scalable, the likes of Falcon.io. Greg showed you how they applied machine learning with those transformation with DBT. And they didn't have to worry about their connects in the back because we are fully automating these pipelines. We are pretty much arriving to the end, and we are happy to take questions. So make sure we look at the questions. As I mentioned earlier, we have a question for you, Greg. Very interesting models that you showed. And we have a question about, it says, how exactly will you use the Markov? I think we pronounced it correctly this time as well. The Markov Chain model for data-driven attribution.
Yeah, could you go back to the slide with that diagram on it?
Sure, of course. It's the first one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so if you take a look at this nodal diagram on the right, this is a visual representation of this Markov chain. Each node represents where a person would have been previously. So like maybe previously they downloaded something off of your website, or they had a meeting with a SDR or AE or something like that. And you have these arrows coming out of these nodes giving you the probability of where they're going to go next. And this is constructed based on all the data you have on people. This does a good job of predicting what's going to happen next, as I said, which is useful in and of itself. But for attribution, we want to assign credit to things that have happened in the past. So the way you use this is you, one by one, remove these activities. So you can simulate a bunch of user journeys by propagating them through this diagram based on these probabilities, and you'll get a number that have converted and a number that haven't. If we one by one say, what happens if everybody that has a meeting doesn't convert? And you do the same thing. You'll lose a specific number of conversions. That's sort of a value loss difference. If you do this for every touch point in sales or marketing otherwise that you have, and you calculate this difference, this value loss, you can then use this to find attribution. So for example, if for a meeting you lose all of your conversions, and a call you lose half of your conversions when removed, you know that your meetings are twice as valuable as your calls. So this is a, you could normalize these differences, or you could use them directly, but this is a really powerful way to get a quantitative number for how valuable all of these things are. There are other models as well. in which you can calculate quantitatively this attribution value. And yeah, I'd recommend Googling machine learning attribution, and you'll find a lot of good stuff, including Markov Chain.
Cool, very interesting indeed. And that actually brings in kind of a link to the question that just came in. It says, what would be next steps to create a reporting dashboard with the business-ready DBT models?
Yeah, so the powerful thing about DBT is that this thing is ready to be used in visualization immediately. So let's say you create this people model or other endpoints in DBT. You can query this directly in whatever tool you're using and start making graphs and dashboards that are meaningful to your use case or your business. With Looker, for example, which is what we use, there are things called views in Looker, and we can query one of these models and explore on it immediately in Looker's UI, and then create graphs. So long story short, there isn't anything else to do in the data infrastructure. Ideally, all you have to do is query it in your tool, and you're ready to go.
There's actually a follow-up question on the DBT. It said, so I mean, how difficult is it to create these DBT models? Let me actually maybe answer part of it. We at Fivetran, we help you with the DBT by release it. We have a package for Salesforce. With those packages, we are able to run most demanded, most business value transformation. And from there, you can pretty much create your dashboard. But for your case, Greg, if I understand, I mean, you created your DBT before even we had this feature. How hard was it?
So this, of course, depends on the complexity of your reporting needs, of course.
Of course.
But actually creating the models is very straightforward. I mean, you just write a SQL script, and you you write a SQL script, and you run these DBT commands. You could do this in Fivetran, or we use a tool called DBT Cloud. As Eamon said, we set this up before Fivetran included this. But in terms of infrastructure, this is very straightforward, and we were able to transition to DBT quickly.
Yeah, that's good to hear that. And as I mentioned again, with the newly released packages that we have for various connectors, including Salesforce, this has been made even much easier. I think we just got just on time here to conclude this webinar. Thanks, Greg, a lot for your inputs, for your contributions. It was a pleasure to have you with us. Everybody, hopefully that you enjoyed everything we present to do, and please do not hesitate to contact us at www.fivetran.com. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.